Well, what's up, brothers? Mr. Halter here again, James chapter 3. And we're going to read it in the Message this time just because I felt like it was a little bit easier to understand. I want to read the entire thing to you because it's kind of all one thought. So settle in. Everybody seated? Everybody got your coffee? All right, calm down. Here we go. James chapter 3. And it's entitled, When You Open Your Mouth. Don't be in any rush to become a teacher, my friend. Teaching is a highly responsible work. Teachers are held to the strictest standards, and none of us is perfectly qualified. We get it wrong nearly every time we open our mouths. If you could find someone whose speech was perfectly true, you'd have a perfect person in perfect control of life. A bit in the mouth of a horse controls the whole horse. A small rudder on a huge ship in the hands of a skilled captain sets a course in the face of the strongest winds. A word out of your mouth may seem of no account, but it can accomplish nearly anything or destroy it. It only takes a spark, remember, to set a forest fire. A careless or wrongly placed word out of your mouth can do that. By our speech, we can ruin the world, turn harmony to chaos, throw mud on a reputation, send the whole world up in smoke, and go up in smoke with it. Smoke right from the pit of hell. This is scary. You can tame a tiger, but you can't tame a tongue. It's never been done. A tongue runs wild, a wanton killer. With our tongues we bless God, our Father, and yet with our same tongue we curse the very men and women He made in His image. Curses and blessing out of the same mouth. Exclamation point. My friends, this can't go on. A spring doesn't gush fresh water one day and brackish the next, does it? Apple trees don't bear strawberries, do they? Raspberry bushes don't bear apples, do they? You're not going to dip into a polluted mud hole and get a cup of clear, cool water, are you? Then it's entitled, Live Well, Live Wisely. Do you want to be counted wise, to build a reputation for wisdom? Well, here's what you do. Live well, live wisely, live humbly. It's the way you live, not the way you talk, that counts. Mean-spirited ambition isn't wisdom. Boasting that you are wise is not wisdom. Twisting the truth to make yourself sound wise isn't wisdom. It's the furthest thing from wisdom. It's animal cunning, devilish plotting. Whenever you're trying to look better than others or to get better or get the better of others, things fall apart and everyone ends up at each other's throats. Real wisdom, God's wisdom, begins with a holy life that is characterized by getting along with others. It is gentle and reasonable, overflowing with mercy and blessing. Not hot one day and cold the next, not two-faced. You can develop a healthy, robust community that lives right with God and enjoy its results only if you do the hard work of getting along with each other, treating each other with dignity and honor. And so I don't know, how do we teach that? It's like so clear. Maybe we'll entitle this talk, Shut Your Pie Hole, because if there's anything I've learned, and I think James is being so blunt, it's because life can be going along so well, and then you send an email, which is a way of sending a word, or you say something at your window at a driver that's just cut you off, or you say an ill word to somebody who then spreads the word or changes the word, and then it comes back to eat your lunch. I think we've all learned that sometimes the very worst things that we can do is be uncareful with our speech. I was actually down in Florida this last week with 5 amazing men that you would call kind of leaders at the top level. And really, if you want to take a look at James 3 and like who's it speaking to, it starts off talking about, don't try to be teachers. Teachers are going to get judged more harshly. Teacher is just another way of saying leader. Back in the day, those that led were generally those that spoke. So different rabbis had different ways of speaking or teaching, and so they would gain a following. So a lot of the times people thought that real leaders were those that spoke well. And so really it's about leadership. In any form of leadership, it's basically saying you should be really careful if you're a leader of a company, leader of a team, leader of anything. It's just going to be harder on you. And so the more you rise up to leadership, the more you're going to have to really take a look at this. It talks towards the bottom there about those that would look to slander others or compete, if you will. And you'll find that usually when slanderous words are spoken against you, it's usually those that want something that you have. It's even out of the Ten Commandments where God's trying to set up how a reasonable, wise world would work. And, he says, don't covet, don't look at your neighbor's wife, don't try to steal. It's all, there's 4 of them that are related to wanting what somebody else has. And then one of them is do not murder, because all of them are essentially leading to murder. So if you want something that somebody else has, you'll eventually try to take them out. And so oftentimes, if we're not careful with our words, they can destroy somebody if we're really trying to take them out, or words can be turned on us and people will try to take us out. Case in point, these amazing teachers and leaders that I was with, we were really talking about a big national conglomerate that will be trying to lead to help give essentially guidance and training to those that are starting kingdom ecosystems in cities, a little bit like what we've done in Alton, where we combine business and mission together. And so there's quite a few leaders that are coming out of the woodworks around the world. And so we're trying to put together a coaching team of, the right type of leaders for this. And we were really going to just talk about how to form this. And the first night we were there, we just kind of sat around, and it was an amazing story of destruction of their ministries, just all in the last couple of years. And I wanted to go down the list here. One of their names is Brent, and Brent just wrote 3 books in the last year and a half, very well respected, kind of framing books for missional communities or micro churches. And Brent, in speaking in that way, got outed by some that were in his closest team, and he actually had to exile to another country over the last 2 years. So we were kind of laughing and crying with him about how painful that was, just simply because he told the story of their church through a couple books, and then people just started to rip him apart. There's another guy named Tim that was leading a really strong network down in Memphis area, and he was known as just being the prophetic leader. So he would speak truth to people, and a few of his young leaders went after him, and so now he's had to exile as well to another city, just hopefully keeping his movement alive. Another guy named Rick was part of a family church and began to speak not against the church, but just the need for missionaries and to set up an alongside pathway in their church to develop kind of Navy SEAL-esque missionaries for their neighborhoods. And this great family church fired him, and he had to go start another movement, which is doing great. But it was amazing. 3 of those guys, they all had to leave town or leave the church. Another guy named Jeff. All he said with his board, and again, these are names that you might even know around the world if you're in the church leadership world, but Jeff is pastoring a very large church, northwest part of the country, and was also leading kind of a network around the country and doing micro churches. And he asked his board if he could just split the time between being, kind of the primary teaching pastor at the large church, but yet, splitting his time. He just said, I'd like to go 50-50. And a few days later, they said, well, you're done. So he got fired from his job. And then a good buddy named Brad, who's on the national level of the largest denomination in the country, was protecting a buddy of his on Facebook. I don't know if you ever see guys that just go after dudes on Facebook and spread lies or gossip. So he went after this guy, even appropriately. I read the thread because I thought it was fairly interesting, but he immediately got a call from the president of the denomination, essentially saying, I will have to fire you unless you put the thread to rest or delete everything. And so we were all sitting around just kind of commiserating about how much trouble we had all gotten into because we just sort of say whatever we want to say whenever we want to say it. And because we've reached a certain level of leadership, we feel like we can, and we all realize, well, we can't. What's different about today versus the times that this is written or even 40 years ago, it used to be that leaders, kind of check this out, leaders used to pick their followers. Okay, so a leader of a church, let's just say Tyler. Tyler has been a faithful leader with you guys. Used to be, even before Tyler, the other pastors that would have been there, essentially they could say, well, we're Presbyterian, this is what we teach, and so if you want to be a part of this movement, then you need to adhere to Presbyterian principles and kind of our way of doing it. So in that sense, leaders got to pick their followers. If you were Baptist, you would say, hey, this is what we believe as Baptists, so if you don't like it, then don't come with us, or vice versa. You could have anything. If you're leading a company, you could go, hey, this is the way we do things at our company, so if you don't like it, don't look to work here. And if you don't like it and you do work here, well, we're going to ask you to leave. So leaders in almost any sector of society could pick their followers. Where we are at now politically and within the business world and within the ministry world, followers almost completely pick their leaders. And what I mean by that is that your title no longer carries the weight of respect that it used to. Especially for people like me that are in the clergy world, to say that you're clergy now, where it used to give us respect, it actually puts us 50 yards behind the line of scrimmage. There's actually negative respect in relationship to our title. If you say you're a CEO, 40 years ago, you maybe would boast that you're the CEO. Now, if you say you're CEO, people out in the world actually deem you to be evil. Or, you know what I'm talking about. It's just that there's no innate title. So followers now pick their leaders. And when you think about true leadership, all leadership is influence. So you're just trying to move people to a preferred end or to a new way of doing something. But we have to realize that when there's no innate respect with leaders of any organization or business, then it's even more important that we are really careful with our tongue. It's actually a point of wisdom, is what James is saying there. So I want to give you a couple practicals just for me. And this is the Hugh Halter litany of miseries that happen with your tongue. But number one, don't send the email. Just don't send it. Those emails that you write in response, you're essentially sending a word to somebody. If you send anything out of anger or with the spirit of tearing somebody down, you will lose 100 out of 100 times. And those of you that have can say amen in front of the young guys before they spend the next 15 years getting out of trouble they got in. So just go ahead and draft the emails to all the people you're mad at, just for your own therapy. But when you're about to hit the send button, just don't. Or at least, if you go, look, I don't know if I can go that far, at least do not send the email for at least 24 hours until you've simmered down and you're not sending it out of emotion. So that's the first thing. I have, oh my gosh, I can't even tell you how many hour-long, 2-hour, 3-hour-long lunches I've had to do to fight through misunderstandings that have come through sort of the typed word. But generally, number two, here's the lesson of James 3. Just don't talk a lot anymore. So keep a tight rein on your tongue. Realize it has incredible power for good or for evil, but it will almost always, if you overtalk, it will be used for evil. And then, third, the higher you are up in leadership, see, complaints always go up the chain of command, right? Slander always goes up. Coveting and judgment and gossip always goes up. So the higher you get up in a position of leadership, the even tighter you need to be. And you go, well, I got my trusted confidants. You actually don't. Whether it's in the church world or business world or political world, you will find that the only one that you can really trust is the Lord and you and maybe your spouse. But even then, be really careful. Just keep a tight rein on your tongue. Number 4, when we do speak, let us make the commitment that we will always build up. No matter what we say, it will always be in some encouraging form, even if we're confronting. We'll have to be really careful. Just, a little coaching I received once is when I'm having or I'm feeling the need to confront somebody verbally, to always stop and go, hey, I'm trying to really believe the best about our relationship or the best about this situation. So help me to believe the best here, but I'm a little sideways right now, so I just need you to help me clarify Sometimes that can help. But, number 4, just if you can, always try to speak in an encouraging way, especially with the millennials and younger. They almost can't take straight criticism anymore. So you have to become a different type of a coach. You can't grab the face mask anymore and scream at them. You actually have to be like a Krzyzewski or I don't know, he probably screams too, but you just got to be different in how you respond. Probably to your kids and your grandkids. You're just not going to be able to say things like you used to say them. Number 5, when you set a fire, make it a fire of encouragement, like we said. Like actually try to create momentum, especially with those that are beneath us, directly beneath us within our businesses. Because I think what James is saying is the way you would steer a big ship with a little rudder, the way you would set a fire with a little tiny spark. When we're out, day by day doing what we do, we have deeds that we do in the world, and we have things that we say. That's essentially the 2 things we have. So people watch us and people hear us. And if those 2 things are together, and what people see and hear is always related to the love that we're bringing into a situation or an encouragement that we're bringing into a situation, we actually can create a fire for good instead of evil. And then the last practical, this is a little bit hard. If you've ever realized that you have estranged relationships because of an argument, something that was said, or you realize that you actually have really hurt people because of something that you said or how you've said it, and maybe, you go, man, I've lost 15 years with a son or with a friend. The best way to make up for lost ground or lost years is just simply to apologize. As James says, to have made it through life and not to have spoken something that you shouldn't would be impossible. It's impossible. And so when you think back upon the people that you spoke harshly with or spoke in a way, even if you gossiped or you slandered or you tried to tear somebody down, or you rolled your eyes and joked about another guy, maybe this is that time when we think about really Christ entering into every part of our life and fashioning us after his image, that we would just go to people and go, I said something about you 2 years ago and it's kind of stuck in my craw, and I just want to say, I'm sorry, I was ticked off. Just own it and apologize, and you'll find that oftentimes the fire will be quenched immediately. It's just like a big bucket of just water that stops another fire from taking off. It's how you rewrite the ship. So if the ship's been off course with your kids because of something that was said, just a simple apology, and maybe we can get that thing, go in the right direction again. So pretty straightforward this week. Just shut your pie hole. And if anything else comes out of it, after you open it, let it be words of grace and mercy and gentleness. All right, guys, take care.